If you grew up watching World War II documentaries, you've heard this claim before, that the fastest fighter of the war was obvious. A Mustang, a Spitfire, maybe a secret German aircraft built at the very end. We're told speed was simple. Whoever bolted on the biggest engine won. More horsepower, more courage, faster airplane. It's a comforting idea, and it's completely wrong. Because the race for speed in World War II wasn't clean or logical. It was chaotic. It lurched forward in bursts, driven by desperation, broken theories, fuel shortages, and pilots discovering the limits of physics the hard way. At 30,000 feet, speed wasn't decided by one airplane. It was forged through failure, crashes, and airframes pushed beyond what the designers thought was possible. So, to answer the question, what was the fastest propeller fighter of World War II? We can't start at the end. We have to go back to a time when speed wasn't the goal, and survival was. In the mid-1930s, fighter aircraft were still evolving out of biplanes. Designers care about turn rate, climb, and pilot visibility. Speed was important, but not decisive. Most air forces believed dogfights would be tight, swirling affairs where agility won battles, not raw velocity. Early monoplanes reflected that mindset. The Messerschmitt Bf 109, first flown in 1935, was a radical break from the past. It was compact, narrow, and brutally efficient. Its liquid-cooled Daimler-Benz engine allowed a slimmer nose, reducing drag, with a top speed just over 350 miles per hour in early variants. It wasn't astonishing by later standards, but in 1939 it was terrifying. Across the channel, Britain responded with the Supermarine Spitfire. The Spitfire wasn't just fast. It was beautifully fast. Its elliptical wing induced drag better than anything else in the sky. Early versions could reach about 355 miles per hour, but more importantly, the aircraft lost almost no energy in turns. At this stage of the war, speed mattered, but aerodynamic cleanliness mattered more. Then came 1940. France fell, Britain stood alone, and suddenly speed became survival. German fighters needed to escort bombers deep into enemy territory. British fighters needed to climb faster and intercept earlier. Engineers started squeezing every possible mile per hour out of airframes that were never designed for it. Engines grew more powerful. Radiators were reshaped. Gun ports were taped over to reduce drag. Even panel gaps were filled. Still, the fastest fighters of the early war barely cracked 370 miles per hour. That ceiling wasn't political. It was physics. Propellers become inefficient as blade tips approach the speed of sound. Compressibility effects began to appear near Mach 0.75, long before pilots understood what was happening. Aircraft would shudder. Controls would stiffen. Wings would lose lift without warning. Speed was no longer just about engine power. It became a battle against the air itself. By 1942, the war forced a shift in philosophy. Fighters were no longer just dogfighters. They were interceptors, bomber escorts, and high-altitude hunters. Speed now meant reaching the enemy first, not outturning him later. America entered the war with aircraft built for range and altitude, not raw velocity. The P-47 Thunderbolt was massive, heavy, and powered by a turbo-supercharged radial engine. Early versions were slower than expected, around 340 miles per hour at low altitude, but at height, they were monsters. At 30,000 feet, the P-47 could exceed 430 miles per hour in a dive, brushing dangerously close to compressibility limits. But dives don't win races. The aircraft that changed everything wasn't fast because of brute force. It was fast because of refinement. The North American P-51 Mustang began life as an average airframe. Its transformation came from a British engine, the Rolls-Royce Merlin. With it, the Mustang gained a slim nose, a highly efficient cooling system that actually produced thrust, and a laminar flow wing designed to reduce drag at high speed. The P-51D could reach about 437 miles per hour at altitude. For the first time, a fighter combined speed, range, altitude, and stability in a single package. It wasn't the fastest propeller fighter ever built, but it was the first to make speed operationally decisive. Germany, under relentless bombing, had a different problem. They didn't need range. They needed interceptors, aircraft that could climb fast, hit hard, and escape even faster. This led to increasingly specialized designs. The Focke-Wulf FW-190, especially in later variants, traded turn performance for speed and firepower. Short wings reduced drag. High-power engines pushed late models past 440 miles per hour. But as Allied bombers flew higher, Germany looked upward. The answer was a Focke-Wulf Ta-152. Long wings for high-altitude efficiency, a pressurized cockpit, water methanol injection, carefully refined aerodynamics. The Ta-152H could reach approximately 472 miles per hour at altitude. On paper, it was faster than the Mustang, faster than the Spitfire, faster than almost anything else with a propeller. But it arrived too late. Fuel shortages grounded it. Pilots were scarce. Spare parts non-existent. Speed, without infrastructure, meant nothing. Meanwhile, Britain pushed the Spitfire beyond what its creators ever imagined. Later Griffin-powered Spitfires abandoned elegance for raw aggression. Massive engines, 5-bladed propellers, clipped wings. The Spitfire Mk-14 could exceed 440 miles per hour. At extreme limits, test aircraft went faster, but operationally, they lived on the edge of structural failure. The airframes were being pushed to the brink. And then, at the very end of the war, came the final expression of propeller-driven speed. Not in combat, not in numbers, but in pure design. The P-51H Mustang was not the aircraft most people remember. It looked similar, but it was almost a different machine entirely. Lighter structure, refined aerodynamics, a more powerful Merlin engine, every unnecessary ounce removed. The result was staggering. The P-51H could reach approximately 487 miles per hour under ideal conditions. That made it the fastest production propeller-driven fighter aircraft of World War II. But there was a catch. The P-51H arrived in 1945. The war ended before it could fight. It never chased enemy aircraft across Europe. It never dueled over the Pacific. Its speed existed in test data, not combat legend, which raises the real question. What does fastest actually mean? Is it the highest measured speed in controlled conditions, the aircraft that pilots actually flew into combat, or the one that reshaped air warfare forever? Because while the P-51H was the fastest prop fighter ever built, the aircraft that defined speed in World War II was still the original Mustang. It proved that speed wasn't just a number. It was endurance. It was reliability. It was getting there first. And getting home. By 1944, pilots were no longer chasing each other in tight circles. They were diving, zooming, extending, escaping. Energy fighting replaced dogfighting. Speed became life. And even as propeller fighters reached their absolute limits, a new sound began to rise above the airfields of Europe. A whistle. A howl. No propeller at all. Jets were coming. The Messerschmitt Me 262 rendered the entire debate obsolete overnight. No piston engine could compete. The race for speed had reached the end of its road. The fastest propeller fighter of World War II wasn't just a machine. It was the last breath of an era. Because after the war, no one asked how fast a propeller fighter could go. They asked how fast the future could arrive. And it arrived without blades.